All right. Well, we've got a good, healthy audience so far, and I'm sure some more joining us. Welcome. My name is Joe Swimmer. I'm the Executive Director of the Episcopal Parish Network, and we are pleased to have you all with us today for this session on parish administrators' best practices. Such a crucial role, the parish administrator, the folks who actually make sure that the parish works, that the church works, that things are open, the doors are open, that we can worship, that we can have our meetings. So much going on that the parish administrators are responsible for. And we are pleased to be joined by our friends and expert from Smart Church Solutions and by the head of our parish administrator group, Jim Lamm, who is the parish administrator at St. David's in Austin. We do have, as I mentioned in the posting that I put in the chat, a parish administrator cohort that meets on a monthly basis. If you'd like to learn more about joining that cohort and learning timely best practices on a monthly basis, send a message to that email address. Also, don't forget that we are in the beginning stages of planning our conference for next year, where we will have Smart Church Solutions, as well as Jim, a member of our planning committee, in Kansas City, February 25 through 28, Tuesday through Friday for the first time next year. Very excited about that. That's a lot for me. Sorry to take up a couple of minutes of your time, but want to say thank you to you for joining us and thank you to our experts. I'm now going to hand it off to Jim and to Kim. So thanks again, and we look forward to their conversation.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's on the call and who's joining the call. We have a large number of people, which is excellent. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Obviously, this is an important topic for me personally as administrator, and for you in particular, those who are on board with us, because we always can do better at our jobs. I've been doing this for a long time, most of my whole adult career. So, but I always learn every time I join one of these webinars or go to the EPN conference. I always learn something, if not many things. So, as I tell the cohort all the time, I don't know everything, but together we will figure out what needs to be done. And if I haven't experienced something, somebody else has. So we're here to help each other. We're here to lift each other up, and so happy that you all could join us. It is my pleasure to introduce Kim Simmons. She is, as Joe said, from Smart Church Solutions. Some of you may know that company through one of their signature programs, eSpace, which is a calendaring program we use here at St. David's. So I highly recommend it, by the way. So I'd like to turn it over to Kim Simmons, and she's going to talk to us about administrative best practices. So Kim, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jim. And thanks, Joe, for kicking us off. Really appreciate it. As Jim told you, my name is Kim Simmons, and I am from Smart Church Solutions. And you might question why does that mean that she should be giving us a presentation on administrative best practices? Those things don't always go together well. So let me explain a little bit of my background to you. I actually worked for 29 years in the financial services world. And in that world, I held many roles, but all of those roles, the common thread is they were administrative type roles. So many of the things that you're doing in your churches. And after I left that role, I actually spent almost 8 years working for a large 5-campus church in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, where I continued to serve in a variety of administrative roles. So those two things combined led me to my role at Smart Church Solutions, and I'm pleased that I'm going to be able to share some of the things I've learned over the years with you, and I bet you guys will teach me something in the process as well. That's always the case. So let me share a slide deck with you to get us started. So we're going to talk today about administrative best practices. I've kind of broken this down into a few areas. So we're going to start with what I call understanding the why. This one can be a challenge because many times in an administrative role, we are so focused on the doing, and that can be doing any number of things because we all in administrative roles We don't shy away from just about anything. I have learned to do things I never thought I would do as part of my roles over the years. But the common thread for me was the why. And it wasn't a need to understand the why to be challenging or to be difficult. And sometimes it can feel that way. It was really more, if I understand the why, I understand the goal. And helping to understand that goal helps me to understand how to get there. So a few bullet points here in understanding the why. Clarify the mission and values of your church. Make sure those are in alignment with your administrative practices. If you find something that is in conflict with that, it's definitely time to take a step back, look at your practices and say, okay, I've got to get in alignment with the church mission and goals. It's really important to understand that what you're doing is providing ministry so ministry can continue. So if you're not in line with the church goals, mission, and values, then it's going to be an obstacle. And that takes me to my next bullet point. I kind of jumped ahead there. You're supporting overall ministry objectives. Your ministry, not your job, your ministry allows other ministry to hit their goals. So when you think about it in that phrase, it really helps to align not only what you do, but it also helps to explain to ministries sometimes. Listen, I'm doing my ministry, so you can do yours. And it's just, it connects the dots together quite well. Recognize the importance of stewardship in managing your resources effectively. Notice I didn't say financial stewardship. We've all heard, we know the importance of managing the financial pieces of our church resources. But what you are tasked with in your administrative role is stewardship as well. Whether you're managing the facility, you're taking care of equipment, maintenance, cleaning, things like that, that's stewardship. So don't undervalue the importance of what you're doing there. Now, depending on where you are, you may have some different legal and regulatory requirements that may impact some decisions. And for you, it's important to know what those are. And it can be as simple as knowing what's the fire code for putting people in a space. What's the maximum number of people? What type of aisles do I need to have? What are the Americans with Disability guidelines that I must follow and what I should follow? Because there are differences. So make sure you understand those. And then the other is really just be transparent. Foster that culture of transparency and accountability. It builds trust over time. And when I say that, when I think about transparency, sometimes we get asked things and it's like, you know what, I can't do that right now. I can't do that because maybe there's a regulatory requirement. I can't do that because there's some other goals that I need to focus on. By being transparent, you're going to build trust. The other side of that is accountability. I don't know about you, but I don't do everything right. Far from it. And when I don't do something as well as I should have, I own that. It's okay to be accountable, and to also hold others accountable. And that helps build trust as well. So I don't want to fly through without checking the chat. So I am going to just kind of look at the chat and see if we had any questions. Jim, I don't know if you saw anything
Yeah,
come up.
there's no questions. We had one comment saying, hoping best practice for handling discretionary fund for clergy reporting and for audit will be covered.
I'm not going to get into too many details around managing those components of finances and audit. But if we have some time at the end, definitely think we could talk that through a little bit.
Okay, and the other question that's come up, would be, will we get copies of this, or do we have to stay on the whole time? Yes, there will be a copy of this recording sent to anybody who's registered, as well as it'll be on the EPN website. And there is a link in the chat, and we can provide one as well.
Excellent. I'm going to move forward to my next slide, which is all about the heart of administration. And that's really, we need to cultivate that heart. Some of us are just wired. That's why God wired us to do the role of administration. It's how we function. I know I function best in roles that have that component. So one of the things when I thought about fostering or cultivating the heart of administration, I really thought about the spirit of humility and grace when you're faced with challenges and conflicts. I put as a sub bullet point here, grace and peace, as a reminder for myself. When you think about Paul's letters, he started all of his letters with grace and peace. He didn't say peace and then grace. He said grace first, followed by peace. And to me, that has always been just a really powerful reminder that if I lead in grace, I should be brought to peace. And when you're in an administrative role, sometimes we're behind the scenes. Sometimes we don't hear about the positive. We only hear about the negative. And so my approach as a best practice has always been to lead with grace and know that peace is going to follow. And I take that from those letters that Paul wrote. That's really, it's a good reminder for me, because sometimes in the moment, in challenge and in conflicts, it's not always easy to find the grace. Grace is something that I've worked on my whole adult life, and continue to work on that and make sure that that is what I lead with. Then there's some, the practical side of things, policies, procedures. And it can feel challenging to have those written down. But really, if you take the time to document clearly policies, procedures, and then make them easily accessible. That's something we do here, even at Smart Church Solutions. We have policies and procedures that we are updating regularly, but it's not just updating it and having a document out in a Google Drive of 80 million documents. We actually have a place where everybody on staff knows where they are. They can easily get to them if they need to. And that is helpful for those that you're supporting as well. If they're asking for something and you have a policy around that, but they're not aware of it, think about how you maybe could make those a little more easily accessible so that they have that information up front. Another really important thing is, be encouraging of servant leadership among not only your staff, the administrative staff, but your ministry staff, as well as volunteers. I know in administrative roles, we rely heavily on our volunteers. And it's important to make sure that we encourage them to be servant leaders in their volunteerism, but also ministry staff. There are things that as you look around and you look at the types of things that you're being asked to do, maybe some of those things are things that folks can do for themselves. And when you think of servant leadership, ministry staff can take on some of that as well. Isn't it a great idea for everybody to empty their office trash can on the way out the door on a Thursday, instead of paying someone or finding a volunteer to visit all those offices to grab that bag and put a new bag in? It's a simple thing, but when you think about it in the terms of stewardship, it's an easy ask. Prioritize the well-being of your staff and your volunteers. Promote a healthy environment. All right, I know I can't see you all, but I'm just going to ask the question. Raise your hand right now if you've ever felt like, is anyone else going to do this? Or how many days in a row do I need to work? I know we've all felt that way, whether we're administrative or we're ministry staff or what have you. But if you're not prioritizing the well-being of your staff and yourself, along with your volunteers, that's over time going to become a pretty unhealthy environment. And that is not one which is easy to lead in grace. Continuous learning and improvement in processes. That I cannot stress that enough. I feel like if I ever stop learning, I'm in trouble, because I know the world around me is changing radically. So finding opportunities to continuously learn is super important, but improvement in processes also critical. One of my least favorite things is when someone tells me, but we've always done it that way. And that can be an accurate statement. And you might need to continue doing things the way you've been doing them. But if you don't continue to look at them, to understand objectives, to understand the why behind what you're doing, you may miss some really key opportunities to improve your processes. So I know for me, it probably drives the folks that work for me a little crazy, but I am always questioning, why are we doing now? Walk me through why we did it that way. And it's not because I think we do things wrong. It's not because, somebody handled something inappropriately. It's because I always want to see, is there a place for improvement? I won't know if I don't ask. And I put it at the bottom, but it's really the top. Make sure you are cultivating your relationship with Jesus. To spend so much time on the to-dos and not carve out that time in your own relationship will be a hindrance to what you're doing. You've got to spend the time in your own relationship. And that I can tell you after, almost 8 years at a church, I struggled with that from time to time because I had to be here and I had to be there and I had to do this and I had to do that. And sometimes that meant I carved the time away out of the time I should have been spending on my relationship with Jesus. So being aware of that and making sure that you hold that to the front of everything you're doing is going to be critical in cultivating your heart towards administrative work. Jim, I see we've got some more stuff going on in the chat.
We do. A couple more questions people had, and you may be covering some of this in your presentation, but one was, what are best practices for parish administrators to establish or include commensurate salaries, professional development, or lay sabbatical as a way to attract and retain lay employees? And then the other question was, could you share a list of typical policies and procedures a church should have?
Sorry, I'm writing some things down so that I make
Yeah.
sure that we get to some of this.
And then the most recent one, can you explain a little more about what you mean by cultivating the relationship with Jesus, your last point?
Sure. Are you spending time in the Word? Are you going to service? I know that sounds a little radical to ask the question, but I can recall a time when I had to be in so many places doing so many things during service. I was never actually in service. And that was not a good thing. I was not building my own personal relationship with Jesus. And when you think about, are you in the Word? Are you reading it daily? Are you in community with others? That is really what I'm talking about in cultivating your relationship with Jesus. Are you going to work and you're making the lists and you're getting the things done? Well, just because you're going to work and you happen to be doing it in a church doesn't necessarily mean you're cultivating your own relationship with Jesus. Now, we all think that it does. I mean, I think a lot of us think that, of course, that's happening, but sometimes we need to be a little critical and take that step back and look at what we're doing and saying, oh, you know what, maybe I'm not getting just to spend time in service like I should. Maybe I'm not spending time in the word. Maybe I'm not in my Bible study group. Really just look at those things. The things that your ministry is asking of your congregants, are you doing those? That's what I'm talking about with cultivating your relationship with Jesus.
A couple other questions related to that. Let's see. One person noted, hold on a second. There's a lot of groups coming in, so they're all pushing up to the top.
Oh boy.
Uh, One person just noted it may be worth considering that not everyone working in church administration practices the Christian faith. That's correct, but I think you're probably saying cultivating your relationship with Jesus if you're Christian. If you're not Christian, then I think the point would be to be participating in your own faith journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mhm.
The other question, and this is one I always get and have had to tackle with myself, do you think that the parish administrator should be a member of the church? The church where they work, I think is what they mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh.
I know from my experience, I've done both, and I find it much easier to worship or practice my faith if I do not worship where I work. And the example I always use is I go to church, I sit in the pew, and immediately I start looking around saying that light still hasn't been fixed, it's still out, or
Mhm.
people stop me on the way in or out saying, "Can you do this?" or "I need this," or and so I'm constantly distracted as opposed to going to a church that's not where I work, where I can just be anonymous, so to speak. But everyone's experience is different, and I've worshiped where I worked, and it works out sometimes for that too. So it kind of depends on the person, I think. What do you think,
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah, I've had a similar experience where um worshiping where I work, I didn't spend as much time worshiping as I should have because I did the same things. Oh, somebody forgot to change the light bulb. They didn't vacuum over there. There were out of paper towels. Um, Plus, when people know that that is where you work, um, you get shoulder tapped an awful lot in those moments, right? Um, the paper towels are out in the restroom. Can you get somebody to fix that or get those replaced? And that interrupts kind of your time in worship as well. So for me personally, it was best to have to worship not where I work. Now, I was blessed to be part of a church that had multiple campuses, and I was able to resolve that by being at a campus that wasn't the main place where I worked. Still the same church, different campus, but not as many people, necessarily knew me in that alternate campus. That kind of resolved the concern for me. But totally get what you talked about, Jim, as well. And of course, some churches have a requirement that you are a member where if you work there, some don't. So there are a lot of things that have to be navigated on that topic. But I know for me, worshiping where I don't work is was a better move.
Yeah, and the other point, and I think it was mentioned briefly in one of the comments, but I've experienced this as well, is if an employee is a member of the church as well, and you have to part ways for whatever reason, that's not their choice. It
Mm,
all of a sudden becomes it's the church that's firing them, not St. David's, for example, and they build up, they're they can be seen where not only are you using an employee, but you're losing a parishioner, and it can become very problematic from a pastoral standpoint. So it sometimes makes employment decisions more complicated than they would be if somebody wasn't a parishioner. That's just my point.
yeah,
And then a couple other people mentioned that as well.
yeah, I'm seeing that. Uh, Definitely seeing that in the chat here. And I know it looks like the vast majority of folks are saying, yeah, probably worshiping not where I work has worked well for them as well. But again, it's going to be a personal thing. you know, some of you may have church leadership where you work and worship that is very good at making sure you've carved out what, that time that you need. And for others of us, like I said, we've needed to worship not in our workplace. You'll find what works for you, but I just definitely encourage you to do that.
Yeah, the other thing with this, and somebody brought this up, and they said folks who are members and become employees after they're already members becomes a challenging dynamic as well with their pastoral
Mm,
leader versus their employer, which is the other side of it, not from an employment standpoint, but from a pastoral standpoint of of a now you were a parishioner, now all of a sudden you're employed and your relationship has changed with the church and with the pastoral leadership. But um, the other side of that is if you're a parishioner first, or if you even are a parishioner and an employee, people can use you to get information or pressure you to get it because you're on
yeah.
the inside, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
the inner sanctum, and they want to know what's going on. Or if somebody leaves, they want to know what's the real story or whatever. And it can put you in some difficult positions, for saying or not saying something. So that's the other side of it as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the other questions not having to do with this. Um, let me see. Let me go back up. I saw a couple that were good. Not that they're all not all good, but not on this topic. Let me go back up because we had a lot of comments about this. This is a hot topic. Obviously, there's a lot of people commenting on it.
Yes.
What are good resources for developing and improving processes?
So really, there are so many opportunities right now, um, whether it be with technology, and of course, I'm with Smart Church Solutions. eSpace is what we offer to do event scheduling and work order management for things, but also for accounting tools and uh, church management software. There are so many technology components, and technology is changing so quickly. That is definitely one place to think about for improving processes. So how does that improve my process? If you are moving towards doing technology in an area, uh, that is the prime time to review your processes before you even sometimes make the decision to incorporate um, technology into an area. If you have you know, hundreds of events happening every week and you're not using an event management software, then that might be an area to consider. But what's the process for those events? Is it one person doing all of the stuff, all of the scheduling, all the planning, all the setup, all the tear down, all the cleaning? Are they doing all of it? Maybe that's what we need to look at first. Maybe we need to look at, are there pieces that can come out of that process um, and be changed, automated, eliminated? So it is always important to look at what you're doing and question the whys. Why are we doing it? Back to my thought of, the thought of, um, well, we've always done it that way. Things are changing. Question why. Why are we doing it? What's the goal? How is it getting us there to the goal? That is a common thing to look at. And that's hard to carve out that time to do that when you're also doing the work. That's the struggle, right? You're doing the work. And now I'm saying carve out some more time to look at the work you're doing and evaluate it. But at the end of the day, it is going to be so worth the effort and energy to do that.
One of the other questions on, and then I know you need to have the rest of you want to get on with your presentation. But what guidance do you have for small churches with part-time staff? Our administrator works 12 hours a
Mhm.
week.
Yeah, so I think whether they're 12 hours or they're 30 hours, I think the important thing is what does that need to encompass, right? What are the primary objectives during that time or with that time for that part-time staff to focus on. Because when we think of administration, again, it can be anything from copy this to change the light bulbs to call vendors to fix things. I mean, it can be a lot of different things. Helping to prioritize those tasks is going to help to say, okay, this is what we can realistically accomplish in the 12 hours or however many hours it is. And that is going to be key to do. I was also reading a little bit here on a chat about scope creep and burnout when there's no one else. And part of that is just scope creep is a rough one. It happens a lot. That's where clear understanding of what the priorities are and what can be done in the time that's allotted is going to be very important. Because then when scope creep happens on whatever topic, you can say, well, we can add that, but now that's not going to happen in this time frame. It's going to happen in this other time frame. And when folks understand that there are ramifications really of adding scope to what you've asked for in 12 hours, that's where you start having conversations about, is this the best stewardship of this resource?
Right. One final question. Are we going to talk about job descriptions? Are there any small church people here? There are small church people on the call. I could tell by some of the churches that are on there. There's churches of all different sizes, big and small. So, and a lot of these things, I will just say, and Kim, you can certainly agree or disagree. A lot of things that we're talking about here about best practices are good for any size church you have, and whether full or part-time staff, good practices are good practices, no matter where you are or how big your church is. You may not have everything, you may not have lots of events, or you may not have a lot of services, but at the heart of it, everyone is doing the same thing. Best practices are the same across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I am going to move us forward. And I know I've got a few other notes here, and I know, Jim, you've taken a lot of notes of anything that perhaps we haven't gotten to. We'll definitely try to get to them as we get towards the end. All right, so we're going to talk about communication strategies. This is a best practice area right here. It's almost the concept of over communicating. But I want to talk about some key components in communication strategies. Clear and consistent communication channels. That's one. If stopping you in the hallway to ask for something is a communication channel, you need to get rid of that one right now. Because I'm sure you've been stopped and asked something, and then you got stopped and asked something else, and then you got stopped and asked something else, and now you've forgotten the first two things. Happens to me all the time. So clear and consistent communication channels. That's going to look different for every church. You may have you may use Slack, you may have a Google form, you may use Microsoft Teams. Whatever the channel is that you as a church are using, just make sure that everybody understands that's the channel. And that they know that that is the best way to get and give information. And I know I talked about technology. Make sure any technology you're using is being used effectively to enhance the communication. And how do you use technology effectively? Well, if you're going to introduce a new technology and you're using the same old process or the same old steps because that's the way we've always done it, are you using the technology effectively? Are you taking advantage of what the technology can do for you to maybe improve the process or streamline the process? And when you have technology available, use it to enhance the communication and make communicating with folks more efficient by utilizing all the components of that technology. And that can be, again, that can be communication channels, it can be event scheduling software, work order software, your church management software that you're using. It can be a lot of different things, but utilize it and understand it so that you can communicate effectively. Thorough and clear communication, full picture of needs. So this is what needs to happen. This is why it needs to happen. This is when it needs to happen. I'm sure we've all been asked to do or something and we didn't get a really good picture of what needed to be done, or maybe we didn't get the deadline that it needed to be done within. By making sure that you're communicating those things, but also asking those things when items are being asked to you. Make sure you're getting the full picture. Ask the questions. Who needs this? When do they need it? Why do they need it? Are there any details I need to be aware of? And we don't ask these questions to be difficult or to be challenging. We ask them so that we have a full picture of the need. Active listening in all situations. So what does that mean? That means not talking. I will tell you, I'm a very quick processor. And a lot of times I will get the answer before the question is fully out. Very frustrating for me to have to pause and listen to the whole thing before I give the answer. But it's something that I've fostered over the years because I know just the act of listening to the entire thing that's being presented to me allows the person that's talking to be heard. My desire to move quickly and move forward and get done sometimes then can get in the way. So practice active listening. And don't forget about empathy. I understand why this is important to you. Let me explain where this fits in the overall scope of what I need to do. So leading with empathy. I understand. I hear what you said. I hear what you've asked for, but now let me explain to you what I can do for you. But by leading with empathy, folks will understand that you've heard and you've listened to what the ask has been. Regular updates. Keeping people informed and engaged. Now, you might be able to use technology for that, right? You might be tracking things in your church management software, and as long as regular updates are placed there, everyone knows where to get them and how to get information. Same with maybe work order software. But if you're not using a form of technology, then provide regular updates back to your stakeholders, whether that's a weekly, monthly communication. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I've got to write a report. It doesn't have to be that. Do a video log. I know our product manager here at eSpace just started for the staff, for the internal staff. Once a week, he gives us a vlog, a video log of kind of what's happening in our development product world. It's less than 10 minutes, but it lets us know what's going on. We're all informed. We all know what to expect for the week. It's really a great way to utilize some technology that is readily available out there and keep people informed. Finally, super important for me, follow up after the fact for lessons learned. Everything you do has a lesson learned, right? But the focus is not ever to be about blame or why did it not work the way we wanted? Who didn't do what they needed to do? The focus needs to be about learning. If you're having, a large event, and the event is great, that's wonderful, but you still should follow up after the fact for what did we learn in the process? Um, and that can be, just a debrief. It doesn't have to be a long, involved process, but it can be a quick, let's grab some coffee and debrief about how things went this past weekend. What did we learn? Is there anything we can do different? And that type of a follow-up is really critical, not only in understanding what happened, but also it's back to looking at those processes that you have and those procedures that you have. You may get from those brief lessons learned conversations a little bit of guidance on somewhere that you need to look in your different processes. All right, Jim, I'm going to take a pause here and see if we've got anything in the chat.
Helps if I unmute. So there was a couple in Q&A as opposed to the chat, and we do encourage people to type in the chat as opposed to Q&A because it's easier to see and everyone else can see it. Speaking of dealing with technology, it would be helpful to have a workshop on handling Facebook, websites, etc., that is expected to be handled by the parish administrator, coordinating information to both the parish and to the neighborhood. I know that that's a good topic to talk about. It might be something that we could maybe work with the Episcopal communicators on that topic. So that's kind of something that they do. And I know that a lot of parish administrators or administrators do both communications and administration and vice versa. So
Mhm.
would definitely look into working partnering with them to maybe come up with something.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. I think I saw another one. Someone was looking for a webinar on lay succession planning. Great idea. Um, because I mean, in succession planning in general,
Right.
great topic for a webinar. Um, whether it be, your pastoral staff or your lay leaders or your volunteers even.
Yeah, because a lot of discussions about that, as most churches have flat organizational charts. So it's not like a corporation where promote
Mhm.
from within all the way up to, the CEO or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
But it really is, I think it always goes back to effective and accurate job descriptions. And so that's, but certainly some churches may have a position that is lay led, that there may be somebody, an assistant or even another area that would make a perfect person for that type of succession as well.
Mhm.
So good
Yeah.
topic, something to think
Yeah.
about for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to move forward and just cover this one, championing vision and adapting practices. I've hit on this a few times here, and really for administrators, leading but also embracing change is very important. Again, we've got long to-do lists. We many times know that there's no way we're going to get everything done in the time that we have. So the idea of also talking about change can become overwhelming. Um, and change, I know some people think change is bad, some people think change is good. I personally prescribe to change is inevitable. It's going to happen. And whether it happens because it's being driven by other people or because you're driving it, really, it doesn't matter. But looking for those opportunities, however small they are, to identify and lead change, particularly in the area of your practices that can make things run a little more efficiently. It's a constant thing, state to be in, which can sound exhausting. I just realized as I said that out loud, that can feel and sound quite exhausting. But honestly, I find it energizing myself. which is probably a little odd, but you know, by continuing to look forward, look at what we're doing and look forward at where we're going. Stay adaptable and flexible. Well, that is really, that's what we do in administrative roles, right? We are constantly adaptable because we're constantly doing something different, or adding something else to the list. So we want to stay adaptable and flexible, but again, manage it. Um, if if you're continually to be asked to add more and more and more to your plate, you've got to look at, well, what's the impact? Back to the 12 hours, right? If I'm only scheduled to be here 12 hours a week, here is realistically what can happen. So I can keep adding more, I can be adaptable, I can be flexible, but we either need to take something away, change something so that the time I need to spend on it is less, or we need to talk about the amount of time that I have. And those things all combined are what is going to help you kind of continue to be adaptable and flexible in those moments. Innovation and creativity. People are creative. And as the person who leads the eSpace customer support team, let me tell you, I am consistently shocked at how creative people are. Our clients teach me something new every single week, not necessarily about how the software functions, but how they can use the software to do something that I never thought of. So encourage that, whether it's, you know, staff that you have or volunteers. If folks have different ideas, hear them out, because that is where you will hear snippets of innovation and creativity. And that just never ceases to surprise me how much I learn every single week from folks. As administrators, we need to empower and equip our leaders at all levels to embody the church's vision. So when we look at areas of responsibility, you know, do we have folks who have the tasks to do, but they don't really feel they have the um, uh, power or the responsibility to make decisions about how they do the work or how it gets delivered? Make sure that folks at all levels understand, if they understand the vision and the goals, give them the responsibility to do it in a way that's going to get it done and be effective. Celebrate the successes and the milestones that show progress. We do not have to wait and have the big milestone. Hey, we got it done. Let's have a big party and order pizza at the end. That does not have to wait until everything is done. There are steps that get you there, and it is super important that you acknowledge and celebrate each of those steps that get you down the path. So making the time to do that is also real important. Staying informed about best practices, emerging trends in church administration. I'm going to give you the link to a blog on my, I think it's on my next slide, that was written by Tim Cool, who owns Smart Church Solutions. He's our leader, and he wrote that not too long ago, earlier in April. And as I read it, I thought, well, that's pretty smart. Why didn't I think about that? There are lots and lots of really great pieces of information out there, be it blogs, YouTube videos, books. I'm reading a software book right now. I never thought I would read a software book ever in my life, as it wasn't something that I thought I would be involved in as a vocation. I'm now reading a software book that I just liked the title. I thought, let me check it out. Lots of great information out there. We don't always have to reinvent the wheel ourselves. Get feedback from your stakeholders. This is really important. It can also be really, really tough to do. Because sometimes we're going to hear things we don't want. I will tell you, when I started my role at the church, I was told out of the gate, like in the first week, well, that particular person used to make your predecessor cry. And that was a pretty jarring moment for me. But what I did, instead of take the fear of that, I thought, you know what? That's the first one I want to meet with. I want to go meet with that person. I want to sit down. I want to talk about, well, what's your experience been like working with this team of people? Tell me your perspective. What hasn't worked? What has worked? What would you like me to think about doing different? Getting that feedback showed that stakeholder that I was bought in. I wasn't just coming in to keep doing what we were always doing. I was bought in to looking at what we're doing, understanding what we're doing, but at the same time, I didn't make a promise to change everything to make things the way that person wanted, because that's not always the right decision. Sometimes you have to say, well, no, I'm sorry, that's just the way it's going to be. But when you have that open dialogue where you're asking for the feedback, there's a greater understanding from your stakeholders that you have a vested interest in making sure that this is being done to the best possible outcome, and that your goal is the church's goal. Might not be their goal. That'll be a different situation that'll have to be dealt with later, but that is what I hope to get out of feedback when I'm talking with folks. All right. Any other questions before I move on?
There's no new questions in the chat. And
Okay.
you only have about 7 minutes left.
All right. So on my final slide, and I am going to send this slide deck out so that you'll all be able to click on this link. I mentioned that there is a really good blog that I read recently, how executive pastors and facility managers can better collaborate for church excellence. Don't get caught up in the titles. Not every church has executive pastors, and every church has facility managers. That actually gets acknowledged very early on in the blog. But it's all the whole conversation is about collaboration. And I wanted to link you guys to this because I thought it really had some great components that kind of follow up to this topic. But the other thing I want to point out is where you find this blog. This is one blog of many blogs that the different folks here at eSpace write and put out and make available on our website. So you will find tons of information out there. They might be topics like this that are of value on a higher, more general topic. But I think we just recently had a blog about vacuum cleaners in churches. So, I mean, we go to every level. There's lots of things. But all of our blogs are targeted for the folks in the church community. So definitely want you to check those out at our website here under resources. But I thought you might all enjoy this one. So I know that there were some comments about job descriptions, and I don't have a list of job descriptions for you. I don't know, Jim, if that's something that you guys have an offer for folks.
I do have, I mean, I have our job descriptions. I will say that I just put something in the chat about our monthly administrators meeting. That's a great resource for a lot of things like this, especially, if you want actual policies or procedures or, how do you do that, standard operating procedures or job descriptions. So I encourage people to participate in that. Our next one will be on Wednesday, May 15th. If you're not on the EPN mailing list, please, you can contact me at jim.l@stdave.org or EPN directly, and then get you on that email list for reminders and things like that. But yeah, there's all kinds of resources out there. Again, like I said, I don't know everything, but together we know, together all of us know everything. So uh, please reach out to me or the EPN and we can get you on that. Also, just a reminder that this workshop is being recorded and it will be available on the EPN website. So as well as other ones that we had in the past. So feel free to jump on that and do that as well. What any other questions or Kim, I didn't mean to cut you off. What else did you have to
No,
say?
no, I think I covered all the things that I had. I really appreciate you guys asking us to do these sessions for you. I know I enjoy doing it, so just want to thank you all for your time today.
Yeah, we have 4 minutes. If anybody's got a quick question they want to put in the chat, we can try to answer it in the time we have. Um,
I'm seeing that someone said the website looks like you need an account. You should not need an account to get on
no.
there. So I'm gonna log off and go take a look at that when we get done.
Yeah, just make sure you're typing in the right address. Let me see if I can do it here in the, oh, wrong one. Let me see if I can go up and find that. Oh, there it is. We got it. Oh no, that was Smart Church's resources blog is what was put up into the chat. So yeah, it's the Episcopal Parish
Oh,
Network.
yeah, let me I just clicked on that link and it is not doing what I would expect it to do. So I'm gonna when I hang up from this call, I'm gonna get to my marketing guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So give me a minute, guys, and I'll see
And,
what I can do about that.
and the EPN website is episcopalparishes.org. And you can go to that and get the recordings if you want. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Otherwise, we can. I want to thank Kim for spending time with us, for uh, giving us her insights and her knowledge. We appreciate that very much. And thanks to Joe Swimmer and EPN for hosting this and for arranging not only this one, but many other ones. Again, get on their mailing list if you're not. And if you're not a EPN member, by the way, a member church, I would also encourage you to do that. There are countless numbers of resources, not only the collective knowledge resource, but actual physical resources that EPN has on their website. And then don't forget about our annual conference in February, which is a great source of knowledge and camaraderie and networking. The administrators, for example, have two pre-conference workshops, which are always very great and very well attended. And you can jump around to go to all the kinds of different workshops during the conference if you'd like as well. So please look on the EPN website for that. Get your vestry to start approving your going now. And if you need a list of why it's important for you to go, just email me and I'll give you a list of reasons why you should attend the EPN conference. So be happy to do that. Tim, thank you so much. It is now 3 o'clock according to my watch. So thank you so much, Joe and EPN. Thank you for hosting us. And thank you all for being part of this great workshop and look forward to seeing you on another one. Have a
All
great
right.
day.